Morning. Dear colleagues, good morning. It's a pity that our hall now is semi-empty. I don't know why. And anyhow, it's time to start. Probably rest of our colleagues will join us later. To say the truth, I'm a little bit confused. This is a very new role for me to moderate in a such event. Especially that actually by background I'm not engineer, I'm not FM. 20 years ago I left medicine. At that moment it was a very tricky decision, but now it is a combination. There is this combination of FM and MD is may look very strange. Anyhow, it now helps to see the building and the people inside as the one entire organism, as a one general system. By the way, it is not only about me. All of us are, in some extent, facility doctors. We cure buildings, we cure a built environment. But what we do, mostly we do for people. And today we'll have 3 presentations about people and 1 more presentation about working environment, which is also for people. So we'll start. During the breaks, please use actively the collaborative wall in the hall. And don't forget to vote for the videos you have seen yesterday. Our first presentation, our first presenter is Jan. Jan, stage is yours.
Thank you.
So this is about people and about opportunities for young people. Welcome.
Thank you. Before I start, I've got a request for the whole group here. Could everyone under the age of 30 please stand? And keep, no, almost. Under the age of 30. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, please remain standing. A question just for you. Did you know about the European Facility Management Conference before you were invited? Please raise your hand if you knew it. 1, 2, 3. You're not under 30. 4. That's good. Would you have been here if you were not invited? 2. That's good. But now, I would say the $1 million question. If we were to ask you guys, the ones under 30, to create an event, to attract young professionals in our trade, would you organize the event like this? Or would it look differently? I see people going, no. No? No? You would? You're under 30? Okay. Thank you. You can be seated again. So, I'm not completely sure about the number of young professionals entering our trade each year. But when I became a facility manager back in 2000, I made a modest guess that it would be approximately 1,500 each year, young professionals graduating, entering our trade. If you count from 2000 till now, we would be talking about at least 17,000 young professionals in our trade. Where are they? And in 2008, 10 years ago, I entered the wonderful world of FM leadership within associations. And I had this knowledge and I was thinking it's all about the future. And I was baffled by the incredibly lack of young professionals in the associations. And it seems to me, sorry for putting it bluntly, that you have to be at least 30 years of age to engage in a meaningful conversation with professional FMs. And probably over 40, maybe 50, preferable, to become a professional leader, a volunteer leader in FM associations. Because if you're younger than 30, probably, well, you have nothing to tell. I don't know. I didn't see him. And I've seen experiments trying to get young professionals into the boards of FM associations, but I wonder, is there any structural effects? So the question for me would be, are FM associations relevant for young professionals? And if we are not, why should we invest so much time in trying to attract them? Should we just not stop that? Well, let me be the champion for the good cause for today. And in the meantime, let's explain you a little bit more about bacon. I was told that there were too many Dutch presenters already. So I want to make sure that you understand that I'm here representing the Republic of Estonia. So the only constant in FM is change. We're a relatively young profession. And if I look back, still say from 2000, the first thing that happened, we had to establish ourselves. We have to become recognized. We did it by showing how much money went on in facility services and facility management. So we had to focus on cost. And we were really good at it. We're still good at it because we still have to reduce cost. After that, we really had to professionalize our trade, not only our processes, but also the people working in facility management. And in recent years, the focus has been more on how can we become a value driver from where we are as a cost center. And these changes did not happen overnight. They were the result of many professional FMs in Europe and in the world really dedicating themselves to drive this change, to make the world better. There were also lots of FMs involved in this process. But to be quite honest, those who were involved, their influence on the change I'm talking about was superficial at best. Because change requires commitment. And commitment means that all your efforts will generate gain or pain. If you're committed, there will be a result and you're going to feel it. Just like the pig feels when he's providing bacon for your breakfast. If you're involved, like the chicken, it's very interesting. So you get involved, you work together, and if it fails, okay, try something else. Like the chicken who's laying the egg. If you break the egg, the chicken will create another egg. The pig can't do it. The pig is committed. So the drivers for change in facility management were entrepreneurs within our trade. People who were acting from a vision for their future, how they thought, how can we improve our trade? How can we make facility management the career of choice? And they were investing time and resources at a great risk, at the professional level, but sometimes also at the personal level. Because if it failed, it would, well, you could have lost a lot of money or maybe some of your professional reputation. And I believe the drivers for change in FM, the really committed ones, are especially found in commercial FM and in research. Governments, education, they tend to follow suit. The platform where all this change really happened was provided by FM associations and standards bodies, at national level, but also on the regional level. So in CEN, but also here in EuroFM. This was the place where these entrepreneurs could share their knowledge, had a platform, create a movement and drive change. So commitment drives change, and the associations, they provide the platform where it can happen. So the most recent change for facility management is the transformation from a cost center or commodity to a value driver. I'll show you the latest, and I would say the most inspirational definition of facility management. That is now the case. That's an ISO, actually it's an EN ISO definition. Why is this important? Well, let me state it this way. We have beautiful buildings that we maintain. We make sure that the HVAC system works well, that the elevator works well. There's somebody at the reception desk. We provide catering. The green is nice and lush and well maintained. And actually there's little perceived value in doing all this. we think is really important, and we tend to talk about each other. We create a new BIM system, really good, high value. Actually, for our client, there is almost no value in what we do. It's just like the baker. Who of you will go to the baker shop and congratulate him each day that he creates nice, fresh, and tasteful bread? It just doesn't happen, because that's what you expect. That's what the baker does. So the facility manager has to make sure that the building is okay, the service is okay, but there's little perceived value. If you don't do it at the right cost, they will find somebody else, because there's lots of people who can do that. Just look around. So work hard, at low cost, don't complain. Or can we make a difference? If we understand the strategies or the objectives of our client organizations and make sure that we also follow their objectives, well, how they're trying to make those strategies happen, and we align our own strategies and the plans to make those possible, we can help the core business achieve their goals, because that's why we're here. So the value in FM lies in human interaction. It lies in the integration of services, empathy, understanding, feeling what they're trying to achieve, and acting on it. Creating possibilities, not solving problems, creating possibilities, and in hospitality. But we have to take into account that the client world is changing rapidly. And we have to keep up. We have to keep on driving change, or become a commodity again. So like in the past, FM has to drive change, because we are the only ones who can do that in the workplace. If you go to an office building, the only thing you see is what we do. We can drive change if we are committed. Don't look too good at this graph, because you will find many of these. These are abundant on the internet. And what it shows is that the world is in flux. Traditional occupations disappear. I understand that at this moment we're training people, young people like you, for jobs that probably won't exist anymore in a couple of years. But also the people we serve, those jobs are disappearing and new jobs are appearing. Some of those jobs might be disappearing again in a few years. So our job is to support jobs we might barely understand. And technology, it really offers opportunities, but I can barely fathom them. You have to take into account that when I started working, the office had typewriters, stenciling machines, rotary dial phones, and the fax machine was still considered an innovation. The world is changing so rapidly, how can we cope with that? So can I use my decades of experience to really commit to change and lead this process? Well, of course I can. I got my Masters of Facility Management at Groningen University. I got my CFM from IFMA. They actually put it in my job description. I'm the expert that actually paid it for me. And I do have a dark suit and my hair is receding. So it helps. So trust me, I know what I'm doing. Or am I? I think, just like many of my peers, I run the risk of mistaking my experience for knowledge of what's about to come. And so how can I help to create 21st century opportunities while living with 20th century experience? Well, you know the famous quote about Henry Ford, who said, well, if I was to ask my clients what they wanted faster horses. So might this be the reason why we fail to attract young professionals in our associations? Are we Jurassic Park in a world full of artificial intelligence? Are we relevant for the next generation? I already mentioned that the core competencies, the skill sets that we need in FM to make the difference between a cost center and a value driver, they are new. It's changing very, very fastly. And I believe I possess these highly craved skills, but I was never selected on them or trained for them. But if the young professionals have these skills, if they possess them, we really need to get them aboard our teams to drive change. And we have to create new commitment together with them to create the change we need for making the future workplace. So baby boomers, millennials, Generation Y, Generation Z, we all have to work together in the workplace to make it future-proof. And our experience alone is never, ever been enough to drive this change and make it possible, as is painfully clear at this moment. So at this moment, you see the rise of disruptive ideas that really shake the foundations of what we've been learned to be the truth. If I look at the Netherlands, there's a new concept called real estate as a service. If you look at it, it's really nice. It is different. It does not combine with what we've been told how the world works. And in this world, I still believe that 20th century traditionalist institutions such as the national standards bodies, EFMC, the CEN-TC, they still serve a purpose. They are still valuable. Why? Because they can facilitate the process of driving change. They can offer the platform for the committed young professionals, the committed FM professionals who want to share their knowledge and create a movement. But for us, the seasoned experts, we have to learn to listen to young professionals. They have a story to tell. And we should focus less on solving the problems we have nowadays. Because if we're going to solve problems, we probably use proven solutions from last century. We should not be solving problems, we should be creating opportunities. So let's embrace disruption and create new roads into the future. So, nice, there's this old guy, dark suit, sitting here, saying this, what young professionals should or should not do. But how am I going to make this happen? Well, I chair the European standards body CEN-TC 348, and I'm also the convener of the ISO TC 267, the roadmap group that creates new standards, or that has to think about the new standards for the future. And we're slowly making a transfer from the technical standards to standards about humans in the workplace, people. And that's really important. And I believe that FM can also be a driver for further sustainable solutions beyond the workplace and the building, if we could just focus on city blocks or campuses, because it's more than just the building you work in. And so I have an offer to make to all you people under 30. I offer an independent podium within the ISO TC, an independent podium as a mirror roadmap group, a strategic think tank, where you can work out your proposals, working from your vision about the future, and pursue your own goals on what we should do with facility management. And what are we going to do? We're going to help you in that process. We're going to coach you, not tell you what to do, what you to do, and try to solve the issues you might have in making this possible. And what's in it for you to do this? Because you have to invest time, you have to be committed. Well, you will find if you do this, your people and management skills get a boost that you cannot imagine yet. And what I think is more important, you will be part of a great professional network, and you'll engage in multi-generation friendships that will last a lifetime. Shorter for me than for you guys, but that's the way it goes. So, what you do with your future is up to you. But I'm committed to help you and our profession to further professionalize and to lead change. So don't be a chicken. Dare to commit and provide some bacon. Thank you. Here you go.
Dear Jan, thank you for your presentation. I would like to ask all the colleagues to be a little bit optimistic. Okay, we are getting older together with our buildings. And it is really necessity and high time to transfer our knowledge to young professionals. But this transfer of this knowledge, what we know right now, will be positive only in case if we will understand the needs of the young professionals. We will see and understand their vision. So I would like to invite to this stage young generation. We really would like to understand your vision. Felicia, floor is yours.
Thank you. But actually, before I would like to tell you something about my perspective, I would like you to think about something. Because who of you believes that facility management in the whole of Europe will actually be the same? And while you're thinking about it, who of you believes that facility management in the whole of Europe, or maybe even outside of Europe, should actually be the same, or will actually be the same? Well, I must admit, I'm not sure about the answer, but what I do know, and I think all of us know and have known for a while already, is that currently FM, the interpretations and the implementations within Europe differ. And this is something that I learned while I've been writing my research thesis for EuroFM. And I think some of you actually might know me because I've been spamming a lot of email boxes. Sorry for that, and thank you if you actually did contribute to my research. But going back to my research, because as curious as I am, I actually wanted to find out what these differences are. Because I've been told a lot about how FM is actually supposed to be interpreted within Europe, by individuals stating that in the Scandinavian countries, FM is supposed to be most developed, by literature stating that FM started in the US, focusing on buildings, and then moved to Europe, focusing more on services. But yet it seemed that nobody could actually give me the answer on how FM is actually being implemented in all these different countries within Europe. So I decided to ask this question to myself by means of my central research question: to what extent does facility management knowledge, based on the perspective of FM practitioners, differ in Europe? And what I did is I actually looked at the content of the function, but also the relevant factors in the national environment to create a complete as possible picture. And what I did is I looked at the opposites within Europe. So I selected 4 countries in the Northwest, 4 countries in the Southeast of Europe, and of course I did it based on a lot of criteria, but for now I won't bore you with that. If you do have questions, you can always ask them to me afterwards. But the reason why I also did this is because I wanted to create a framework for EuroFM to facilitate knowledge sharing in order for her members, you, to come to a better mutual understanding and a further development of the profession. And I think these are our common interests, knowledge sharing and a further development of the profession. Because personally, I'm not sure whether FM should or will ever be the same. And if you do have an answer to it, I would love to learn about it. But I'm not sure, because during my research, I found out that how much of influence the national environment actually is, and it's huge. Having said that, I think it's most important that we should just at least learn as much as we can from each other. And what exactly we should learn, I will come back to you at the end. But first, I would like to lead you through some of the most interesting results that I found during my research. If you look at the FM market volume, because I first look at some data reports of these countries, in the top left graphs, I did not find these results too striking, because I have always been told that FM in the northwest of Europe is more developed than it is in the southeast of Europe. And I think that these graphs about the FM market volume, the first one is actually in absolute numbers and the second one in relative numbers, these graphs actually support this statement. But what I did find interesting were the results of the outsourcing percentages, because I have always been told, again, that in the Northwest, FM is supposed to be most developed, and a higher degree of outsourcing equals a more mature market. And if you look at these graphs, that would mean that actually in the southeast of Europe, FM is quite and maybe even more developed than some of the Northwestern countries. For example, Norway, as I've been told, only has a 20% degree of outsourcing, whereas Hungary and Romania have a 65 and 35% of outsourcing. So this got me triggered, and it got me wondering how this could actually be, because that's not what I've always been told. Well, fortunately, I did find the answers to this further on in my research, and actually I found it in the national environment. What you can see now is actually an overview of my, a summary of my conclusions, basically. I would like to add a little footnote to this, because I tried to make as much as possible general statements about countries. I did not go into detail, at least not in my conclusions. So keep that in mind with whatever I'm stating next. So what did I find out about FM within Europe? Well, for starters, about the outsourcing percentages. Because as you can see by looking at these little pyramids, Whereas there is a high degree of outsourcing, it does not equal a higher operating level in the Southeast. And the reason for this, what I found out during my interviews, is that because the main reason for outsourcing is often still a lack of expertise. And this explains why there is a lot of outsourcing, but the function is quite operational still. Whereas, for example, in the Netherlands, there's also a lot of outsourcing. It's actually a pioneer market. But the main reason for outsourcing here is because of a focus on core business. And these differences in main reasons actually explain why in the one country there is a higher operating level and in the other country there isn't. And actually continuing on this outsourcing, I also found out why in Norway the outsourcing is rather limited. Because I've been told that in Norway outsourcing does not always equal a higher quality. But yet I really felt during the interviews that quality is of really big importance for all Norwegian people. So again, this explains why there is not much outsourcing, even though the market might be developed. And besides these interesting things that I learned about the outsourcing, my conclusion actually confirmed, I think, what we already knew, namely that in the southeast of Europe, the facility managers still have most of the efforts to put in to really climb up the FM ladder. And actually only in Denmark and the Netherlands, at least for the countries that I looked into, really have a tactical and sometimes even a strategic role in the organization. And another thing that I learned, which I think is not too striking either, is that in the southeast of Europe the focus is still mainly on buildings, hard services. Again, this is a general statement. And actually only in the Netherlands the focus and the basis is on the people's wishes and needs and the soft services. And but it doesn't mean that even though it is a tactical or strategic function in the Netherlands, the facility manager does not have a voice in the design phase of a building. And this actually brings me back to my first question about how FM should be interpreted and implemented and what should it be then, because based on my research, as I really felt that it is quite difficult to focus on all the aspects of FM, be good at both hard services and soft services and buildings and people. So this is something to think about. And actually, I would like to end with this kind of a conclusion of my conclusions. And the basis of my recommendations is actually that we should just learn from each other, as I just said. And I think it's most important for every FM professional, including myself, including all the students that are actually yet to become an FM professional, to learn from other specialities. So now the most important question, of course, is who should you learn what from? Well, for starters, about the knowledge on the focus on the people. As I said, the Netherlands is good at this. And for now, I actually think this is important for Norwegian facility managers, because I learned that in Norway, actually, in the country itself, the focus on people is becoming more important. Whereas during my interviews and based on the surveys that I sent out, I did not see that actually the facility manager is already focusing on the people's needs, or at least not that much yet. And I think this is an opportunity again for the facility managers to start focusing on this people's need, because in general in Norway it is being found important, to actually show what the FM discipline is worth, what the added value can be, and actually move away from this focus on cutting costs, as now still is often the case, as you can see. Because I've always been told that the FM practitioner should move away from a focus on cutting costs and start adding value on different levels. So I think this is a good opportunity for the Norwegian facility managers. But on the other end, if you want to learn how to be part of the design phase, talk to Danish facility managers. Personally, for example, me, as a Dutch student, I don't feel as if I know a lot about buildings. I do know about guest journeys, about hospitality, about sustainability. But when I went to the winter school last year, I worked with these students from Austria and from the USA, and they were really good at construction of building, the maintenance. They had these key figures that I never heard of. And together we were a good team, so that was good. But I think this is something to really think about when you talk about this knowledge sharing and when you talk about students and knowledge sharing. And then the outsourcing that I mentioned. I think it's most important for Bulgaria, Hungary and Romania to learn about effective partnerships because there is a lot of outsourcing in these countries already. So actually the only thing that still needs to be done is to make this most effective as possible. And again, I know that in the Netherlands these partnerships are applied, maybe not as often as the facility managers would like to, but this is also a good thing because this means that if the services are properly outsourced, the FM practitioner can start operating on a higher level and think about other things than just the operational services. Moving on to the southeastern countries, I would like to highlight two aspects of Bulgaria, and it's not because we're visiting this country, but because two things stood out to me. In Bulgaria, namely, I learned that shared workspaces are upcoming. And an interviewee told me that for me, maybe this does not sound new, because I'm from the Northwest, but she told me that it is quite innovative for the Southeast. And again, I think this is a really good opportunity for the FM practitioner to show what FM can be of importance of by implementing these workspaces, by leading the process. And again, the Netherlands is a country where these are applied, but there are more countries in the Northwest, as I know, which do apply these workspaces. And also what I learned is that Bulgaria is the only country, at least based on the countries that I looked into, that actually provides a bachelor studies in facility management. And as I would like to quote a Norwegian interviewee, it is important to have bachelor studies because this means that people can actually choose for facility management. And being able to choose for facility management as a student means that you will actually choose for your own profession, and in turn this will contribute in the development of the profession itself. Well, ending with this, all things considered, again, I think it's most important that we learn as much as possible from each other, from other specialities, to maybe eventually become good at every aspect of facility management. But before it's this far, I think there's still a really long way to go. So I would say, share your knowledge, gain your knowledge, and I think especially the sharing is most important to provide knowledge to people that maybe don't possess it yet. And with that, I would like to end my perspective from me as a student on the practice of FM within Europe.
Good. Felicia, thank you very much for your research and for your presentation. In my understanding, independently of generation, people still operate from building, and probably it will be so until technology will dramatically change this world and we all switch to telework for maybe in a couple of years. Until we need working place and buildings, let's talk one more time about organizing the working place and its necessity. Our next presenter is Chris. Welcome on the stage with some important information regarding working place.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Morning, everyone. Hello. Hello. It's a weird thing, isn't it? The second day of a two-day conference, there just seems to be less people actually wake up in time to come to the conference. But I was with some people last night, having a couple of Coca-Colas, some Dutch colleagues. And as I arrived, they're talking in Dutch, and as they arrived, I kind of walked up, and there was this moment, they all stopped talking, and they said, "Oh, we have to talk in English now." And I was like, "I'm really sorry. Like, I don't speak any other language." So my first thing I want to say is just, each year I come to this, I am so impressed, and I'm not trying to be sycophantic here, I'm so impressed at watching everyone present, nearly everyone, in their second language. I mean, it's hard enough doing it in your first language, as you're about to find out, right? But doing it in your second language, unbelievable. So thank you very much. Yeah, as Alexi said, I'm going to talk to you very briefly about workplace. Now, I'm going to promise a few things. I'm not going to promise there's going to be a lot of information in here. There's not many graphs. There's not much evidence. I know I'm surrounded by academics at the minute who are going to say, support your arguments. I've not got much to support my argument. I'm just going to argue. I'm just going to shout real loud and hope that you take that in. Mark Eltringham yesterday spoke about the workplace debate and it being quite an emotive subject. Yeah, you're about to get that because I'm very passionate about this. What I will promise you is that some of this you will disagree with, I'm sure. Some of this you might violently disagree with. Some of it might feel a little uncomfortable. It's going to be challenging, okay? But that's a good thing. At least I hope so anyway. And at the end we can all attack me outside. So, as Mark mentioned yesterday, I'm from the BIFM, the British Institute of Facilities Management. I'm the director of Insight there. Like my dad keeps reminding me, and he's right, it's not a real job. I get to go to conferences and talk an awful lot. I get to read and write an awful lot, but it's not a real job at all. So don't tell anyone at BIFM, but I've been getting away with it for so long. But we made an announcement on the 1st of March that we intended, and at this moment in time it's still an intention, to change our name. The reason it's an intention is because our members have to vote their approval for it, and that's happening on the 5th of July this year. But we have said to the membership that we intend to change our name to the Institute of Workplace and Facilities Management. And what's really interesting about that, we also announced an intention in the long term to achieve chartered status within the UK. That's something that the Queen's Privy Council awards to organisations. That's kind of a long-term aim. That's something that sits separate to this. But this argument, this debate, sparked a lot of conversation, an awful lot of conversation. A lot of conversation about a word. And it really was almost as complicated as that. It was about a word and what it meant and what was in front of the other word. Is it in front of FM? Is it behind FM? What's going on? And it got me thinking, because I'm not an FM. I'm not an FM practitioner. I'm 35 here, and I don't know what camp I go in now, so I'm sort of stuck in the middle, no man's land. But I'm not an FM. I spent 15 years, though, in professional associations. So previous to this, I was at the Chartered Institute of Marketing, watching marketers talk about themselves. I then joined BIFM. Briefly, I went over to work for an organisation called Leesman, which you may have heard of, do workplace effectiveness data. And then I've come back to BIFM. So it's about 5 years in the industry. But I'm fascinated with how people talk about FM, the profession, how they articulate some of the challenges. Because words are important. Words mean stuff to people, stuff that I can't tell you. So as these words are flashing up, whether it's the clothes you buy, whether it's the cars you drive, whether it's the social media platforms you use or the devices that you have in your pockets, these words are instantly triggering things off in your brain, emotional responses that I'm not controlling. I am not telling you anything about these guys. Sorry, that's a bad one, right? That's even worse, right? So, these words, I'm not trying to sell you anything about these. You will all have your opinions on them, and they will all be different. Your experience of them will all be different, just from a word, a spoken word, a written word. Emotional response is what marketers for years have been working on with branding. When you see their brand, they want you to have an emotional response to it without them having to say anything to you, right? So words are important. Now, why am I talking about brands at an FM conference? Partly because it's a nice break, but, right, it happens in professions as well. So marketing. Is anyone working marketing here? I just probably should check before I slag them off. No? Okay, good. Because in marketing, we work with marketers though, right? Everyone here know a marketer, right? Colouring in department. They do pictures and stuff, right? Websites, fluffy stuff, adverts, right? Anyone working sales here? There's got to be a salesperson in here at an FM conference. Yes, sorry sir, you're a cowboy. Is that Simon? No, it's not. I thought I knew you there as well. But cowboys, park your horse outside. But they're cowboys, right? And HR, well, they just stop stuff from happening. And IT, they stop more stuff from happening. Right? So we do this all the time. We're sitting there, we're laughing at the other professions. But what do you think they see when they see this? What do you think they're talking about at their conference when they talk about this? Right? So I don't know if it translates, okay? So we've got janitor, right? I don't know if it translates outside of the UK, but there's only one reason anyone says the word facilities without being at an FM conference? And it's normally when you're in a pub with your friends and they say, do excuse me, I need to use the facilities. Right? So we've just been talking about attracting the new generation in. If they know nothing about FM and then they see that, what are we doing? Who called it this? Whose fault is this? I get to ask to talk a lot on panels in the UK, and again, it's something we talk about all the time. We're the Cinderella profession. No one knows we're here, and sometimes I think we're actually proud of that. Oh, no one knows we're here. Haven't we done such a good job? Why will no one listen to us? Because no one knows you're here. That's, it's like all this sort of contradiction that's floating around in this whole thing. We keep saying we want to be in the boardroom. We have to be in the boardroom. Every conference I go to, we should be in the boardroom. I mean, I don't know how big we think this boardroom is, but every profession wants to be in the boardroom. All of them. That's the biggest one I can find, right? We should be in the boardroom. We'll be in the boardroom. That'll solve it all. We need to be more strategic. FM conference bingo. There we go. Full house. We've got the whole lot. That word strategic, and this is from years in marketing, right, is the most overused and least understood word in the English language. No one knows what that actually means, but they keep using it because I sound important, right? I don't buy into this idea of strategic FM being a solve-all. We can't solve it by going, see, yesterday, I was just an FM. But today, strategic FM. Where's the keys to the boardroom? Right? Which seat is mine? Right? We can't just do it. It's about actions. So we've got this perennial problem. We're constantly moaning, and we've seen it this way. We should talk to people outside of this room. We should be more strategic. Organizations don't understand us. When's it going to stop? How does it stop? Now, meanwhile, out in the world, what does strategic mean to organizations? Well, it means they're looking into the future. They're thinking about what are their problems in 10 years' time. How do we respond to that? Now, that's strategy, okay? Now, what they're looking at, one of the things they're looking at is this. Now, I know it's boring, okay? We say it every conference, war for talent, yawn, 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 but it's a real problem. It's a real problem. There's a reason that the big four management accountancy firms have got bases here in Bulgaria, because they realized that this was a talent market they hadn't tapped yet. So it was a race to get here, right? Because it was talent. Now, one of the most competitive areas for this war for talent is on the west coast of America, where all the tech firms are exploding and growing quicker than anyone could have possibly imagined any organization would grow. And they want the best developers, the best innovators, the best creative people they could possibly get into their organization. And there's a number of things that they're doing to get that. But one of the things they're doing is leveraging their working environments to bring talent in. Now, I've got a bit of an issue. I used this, and I was a bit annoyed with myself that I used this. Slides in FM presentations, very boring, I know. There's an actual thing with the Google slide, and Fanula, who was here yesterday from Dublin, but she's not here now, I was at the BIFM Ireland conference. Did you know that the Google slide is actually part of the induction process? Anyone know that? You're not allowed to go down it until you've passed your induction. And then you get that tap on the shoulder, you stay in, down you pop, right? So it's all part of the DNA. Anyway, but we've started to see working environments being leveraged and being used and being advertised as a reason to work at this organization. This is our moment. This is it. This is the workplace that we're in charge of. This is it. Thank you very much. Wait for that door to open and we'll be in. But it's not happening. Now, I think part of that is people, not us not understanding what we're doing, but other people understand what we're doing. Now, I am astutely aware that I am surrounded by academics. Some people have probably written these things that I've just put up. Ian just mentioned one of them. I think part of the problem is how we talk about ourselves, right? And we put these things in there so you can see a number of the different associations that say these are our definitions of FM. You can see some commonality between them. People, place, process, brilliant, great, all that. But for me, it doesn't pass the test. And it's an important test. It's the pub test. Because if you're in a pub or in a bar or at a party or at some friends' houses and they say to you, what do you do for a living? Whew, okay, here we go. So this is Bill and Ted. They've just come out of university, just passed their undergrad course, and they're talking, having a chat over a pint. Here, Bill. Very English pub, by the way. Here, Bill. What's this area you've got a new job? I'm an FM, Ted. What's that then? Well, I'm responsible for the function which integrates people, place, and process within the built environment with the purpose of improving the quality of life of the people, the productivity, and the core business. Ian, where was the commas and the full stops? For crying out loud. Oh, woof, breathe. Breathe. Right you are, Bill. No one knows what that means outside of here. Language is important. They don't know what you're talking about. So what we have to do in FM, we have to lay the groundwork first. Well, first we have to explain the world of business, and then I'll explain my bit in that, and then I'll explain what I do in that. It's hard work. You may as well lie. Just tell them you're a journalist or something, or a lawyer. They'll stop talking to you. Okay? So it's difficult. Words are important. Because if you look in Google, that's what Google thinks facilities management is. So we can write all the definitions we want. The outside world, they go here. The maintenance of an organization's buildings and equipment. Does that sound strategic to you? Right? It's important, no doubt. But when you're a CEO putting your business together, do you sit there and go through and go, well, I need a marketer? Yes, definitely. Sales, yeah. HR, yeah. Do you know, if only I had someone that could maintain my building and equipment, that's FM, right? It's important. This is what people Google. This is what people look at. Now, this guy you would have seen, no doubt. Simon Sinek has written a wonderful book on the power of why. It's a marketing book at its heart. It's about brand. But it's saying the brands that really succeed are the ones that talk about why. Not how, not what you do, why you do it. And our conferences are full of the how and full of the what. Start talking about the why. Why do you do it? It sits at the heart of every success story. So why is it that this opportunity that's landed on our laps, that organizations now think this is quite important, this thing? This guy, Michael Ashton, former Chief Marketing Officer of Hilton International Global. He's kind of respected in the marketing industry for essentially turning Hilton around. Okay. Now, he became a spokesperson for us at Chartered Institute of Marketing, and he stood up at an event like this. It was a dinner. He stood up at an event like this, and now, by the way, marketers are saying, we should be in the boardroom, we need to be more strategic, no one understands what we do, and if you go to an HR conference, they'll say the same thing. But he stood up at this event, he said, do you want to know why you're not in the boardroom? Do you want to know why no one's listening to you? Do you want to know whose fault it is? It's our fault. It's our fault. If you're in an organization right now and you don't think you're being listened to, and you don't think you're being valued, and you don't think you're in the right conversation, it is no one else's fault. It can't be. We can't come to conferences year after year after year for 30 years blaming everybody but us. We blame everybody else. They don't understand us. It doesn't make any sense. When you keep talking about a problem, perhaps you're the problem. Right? That's the uncomfortable bit. We'll move on. Because they talk about FM, but they don't say FM. They say workplace. When a marketer wants to get to the top of the tree in an organization, they don't talk about email marketing. They talk about brand, about customer engagement, stuff that the chief executive cares about. They talk about workplace. However, I do accept in some organizations, facilities does ring the bell. Facilities does make sense, particularly in environments like this. So I speak to the guy that runs this stadium. He reports to the director of facilities. Brilliant. Sits on the board at Manchester City, one of the biggest clubs in the world. Well, they bought a lot of it, but let's not get into football again, Matt. Well, you beat them, so that's a good thing, right? But he calls himself stadium manager. So even here, I said to him, why do you call yourself the stadium manager? Oh, I'm fed up with explaining facilities. It's just easier. Stadium manager, great. So even there, they're having to work out different language to get an idea across. Because when you Google workplace, that's what you get. A place where people work, such as an office or a factory. Oh, that makes sense to me now. I manage that. Brilliant, cool. Get on with your drink. What do you want? It's important. Now, just to sort of give you some of the, as we're flashing here, but Ian finished earlier, so did Felicia finish. I'm going to use some of your time. But we get told, as we put this out, we got responses back. It's a fad. This workplace thing is just what conferences are calling themselves now to make it sound more sexy. I'm sitting there going, and that's the argument against? We're the profession trying to be sexy, and we're saying, oh, that's just the sexy talk, that is. Is it a fad? Well, a fad's something that's intense and widely shared enthusiasm and short-lived. That's what a fad is. You can see I spent a lot of time on Google here, right? This is short-lived. News for you. This is the history of IFMA. This is their foundation of that organization. As FM grew, this is their words, not mine. As FM grew, those tasked with overseeing the new workplace were in need of guidance. The workplace guys, hello, 1970, they were talking about it then. We just forgot. We got obsessed with the industry. We got obsessed with outsourcing. We got obsessed with cost management, and we forgot what it was all about in the first place. Managing these workplaces that our people are in. I also laughed as well because there's their first conference, a facilities influence on productivity. Wow, we've been talking about productivity a long time, and we still talk about productivity for a long time. I also get told it's just part of FM. So we saw the mind map yesterday. It's just part of it. Workplace is just one of the things that we do. I think we might be looking down the wrong end of the telescope here. I think. Because I could see David Emmanuel was there. David Emmanuel is there. I'm going to gladly steal this from you, right? So, there's nothing wrong with stealing as long as you're referencing. See, researchers, lecturers, I'm referencing. It's not a Harvard reference, just Dave over there. But I think sometimes when FM says that, what they're talking about is workplace with a little w, a workplace project, a move, a refurbishment, a redesign. We're obsessed, we think workplace is a design thing. No. We're talking about workplace with a big W, the discipline, the role, the profession. Our role in that organization is to create wonderful, productive, enjoyable working environments. That's the net effort. That's the net result. We need to get our heads around this idea that Mark touched on yesterday, that workplace is not just an office. That's another thing that we do all the time. These are all workplaces. All of them. People work here. The problem is that maybe it's primary function. It's mixed use. I like to call these mixed use workplaces, right? But what a wonderful world it would be if we treated hospitals like a workplace. If we treated hospitals from the doctor out. What is it that the doctors and the medical staff need to do their job most effectively? I tell you something that will have a positive outcome on patients. 100%. Workplaces. These are workplaces. And workplaces is not just a building. And I'm in danger of touching on sort of well-used rhetoric at these conferences. But it's not just a building. We did some research that comes with this announcement. And we asked FMs, how do you see the role of FM? On one side of the spectrum, on the left-hand side, it's managing the spaces where people work, the buildings, the physical space. At the other end of the spectrum, it's enabling people to work wherever they need to. And we asked FMs to put themselves on that. And you can see it's shifting. It's not about the building. The building just happens to be our tool. It is not about the building anymore. Organizations don't care about the building. They care about what goes on inside it. And we can influence that. We can manage that. However, we can't just call ourselves workplace managers and it changes, because we haven't got the skills, frankly. Because we need to start to understand culture. We need to start to truly understand technology. I tweeted yesterday after Stan about our understanding of technology, because at the moment it's woeful, right? We keep talking about technology, but we don't genuinely understand what it is, what it's going to do. We are coming from the space side of it, right? That much is true. But for this to work, these all have to work together. So it's about, think about this. It's like all the stuff we do, all the stuff we've talked about is why are we doing it? Why are we in our organizations doing it? So when you see workplace in our name, when you see workplace in our initials, think about it in two ways. Yes, it represents workplace, but it all represents our why. It's what we're here to do. It's our role in the organisation. Now, I did see the briefing, no logos, and I've put the biggest logo up yet, right? But don't worry, this is a bit self-humiliating, I guess. For 25 years, BIFM has claimed to be advancing the profession, but we're still talking about no one understands what we're doing. We have failed. As an organisation, we have woken up to the fact that we have failed to advance the profession. We've done some good work around standards, around qualifications, but we have failed to truly advance the profession. Now, that feels uncomfortable because we're part of the problem. But when you're part of the problem, you can be part of the solution. Everyone in here that feels like they're not valued, everyone in here that feels like they're not understood, you can actually do something about it. This is not someone else's doing, right? We're in control of this. We can be that change, right? It's an old Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see in people. Do something about it. Go and grab someone's attention. They just cut me off. Time's up, buddy. Right, that's me. Thank you very much. Thanks for your attention. Cheers. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Chris, thank you very much. Very inspiring presentation. Of course, we influence very much on other people managing the workplace, but also people may influence us as the whole industry. So it is especially important not only to find common language between different generations, different parts of FM industry, but with the stakeholders who are holding very, very high positions and can easily influence the whole industry or even change it. And we need practical cases how to do that. We have one practical case from Nigeria. Our next presenter is Collins. Collins knows very, very well how to manage local government. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me this morning. And it's been a blast throughout this conference. And this morning, I'm here to share with you our story, a story of how we are developing the FM profession in Nigeria. And as it is the case in many countries I've visited, every time I introduce myself as a Nigerian, I almost often have the same impression or expression in the faces of some of the people that I am discussing with. Oh, you're from Nigeria. So it is so much joy to be sharing my story to this audience this morning. And I would like to find out from you, when you hear the word Nigeria, what comes to mind? What do you think, or what is the impression you have of our country? Oh, that country that is so corrupt, that country that is full with insurgency, country that is poor and suffering from malaria, or what exactly is it that comes to mind? But this morning, I'm going to change the narrative. I believe that we are a country that is moving forward. And things are happening that the world will come to copy with time, especially the FM profession. I'm here to share with you how we have advanced the growth of the FM profession in Nigeria with how influencing change and interacting with governments. So Nigeria is a very big country with over 930,000 square kilometers. And not just only big in terms of landmass, we're also very big in terms of population. We have over 170 million people in Nigeria. And better still, we have our fourth largest youth under the age of 20. Not only that they are young, but they are very smart. So you're talking for bright talents, come to Nigeria. So, the FM market that we're here to talk about today is growing, is dynamic, is doing a lot. We have widespread outsourcing. Companies from all over are coming in to do business in Nigeria. And there is direct foreign investments all over the place. Then, before now, or where did we start from? That is a good way to start the story. The situation was not like this a couple of years back. The word facility management did not even exist in Nigeria a couple of years back. And the profile of FM was such that it lacks government recognition. We lacked resources. There are no standards. There were no standard practice for facility management. Right now in Nigeria, we have inadequate power supply. Most of the time, we generate our own power. Can you imagine the facility manager within this complex producing its own energy? How many of us can fathom that? But that is what we do. That is what we are used to, generating power to get this facility running. So we don't have adequate power. There is significant deferred maintenance. They don't understand the life cycle costing. All they know is the first 3 stages of construction. They finish the building, conduct the opening ceremony, and everybody goes to sleep, enjoy the party, and let the building take care of itself. That has been the situation. We just do not have the understanding. At best, when anything breaks, we fix it. No planning, nothing. And gradually, we began to develop ourselves. And right now, we have over 400 practitioners that have FMP certification. And we have well over 25 certified facility managers. And of course, we have 2 fellows of the International Facility Management Association in Nigeria. Now, we also have 3 universities or so offering facility management as a degree course in Nigeria. We had those in the past, and some are still with us. But at some point, haven't been exposed to the reality of what facility management can do for a country, we began to think and to take our destiny in our hands, because some of the things that was happening around us in the field of facility management was not going to change if we do not provide a homegrown solution for our problems. Okay, so the growing recognition of facility management as a business enabler began to make us to think very closely, and our association with the likes of BIFM, the British Institute of Facility Management, and IFMA and other bodies made us to begin to think and look for how to truly change this narrative. With the publication of the ISO 41000, that also gave us reason to say we need to take ourselves very seriously, because this profession truly exists as a profession and it can do quite a bit for us as a nation. Now, we also began to see young graduates asking questions about this vibrant profession. And we needed to give them a basis to pursue a career in facility management. And also the fact that we had so many international organizations and FM in Nigeria, even though we see the great potential it can do for our country, we were really fragmented. We had different groups. There is this group that belongs to BIFM. They call themselves BIFM Nigeria. And we also have a group which I belong to, the International Facility Management Association. These are all international groups, and we have benefited immensely in all of this group. But there was no way we could come together and pursue a common goal, because every one of us felt, I am more important, I'm more superior to you. And the division amongst us did not allow us to make any meaningful progress. We were just running around in circles, just arguing over who is more superior, who is having the better exposure, and all of those things. So we needed to change. These were the things that drove us to begin to think differently and to look for how we can resolve the issues that have stifled the growth of the profession in Nigeria. So we believed that the solution is within us, and we have to find that solution. And these were and one of the other reasons why we began to think very carefully was the federal government of Nigeria. They came up with an act of parliament, the Bureau for Public Procurement, or the Procurement Act. And the Procurement Act gave guidelines on how you procure services and goods and products from any organization. And when that bill came on board, we noticed that if the federal government or any entity wants to procure services, they go talk to engineers, or at best talk to SC surveyor when it has to do with facility management related projects. And when we go to them and say, excuse me, we are the professionals, we've spent a lot to develop ourselves, why are you not talking to us? They pull up their list of professional organizations and look through it. Sorry, we can't find facility management here, so you don't have anything to say about it. Oh, that was very, very frustrating. And having engineers to give you the guidelines to procure FM services was quite frustrating. Sometimes I look through a bid document, I'm asking myself, is this really a facility management bill document or what? So it gave us reason to begin to look inwards. And of course, the federal government of Nigeria also are signatories to the Paris Climate Accord. And the climate change issue was a big deal. So who is going to drive that? All of these gave us a reason to begin to think on what to do to see how we can change the narrative and also give us a good foundation to contribute to the growth and development of the FM profession in Nigeria. And guess what? If Nigeria gets it right, the whole of Africa gets it right, because we are a major influencing group in that part of the continent of the world. So we needed to change. We needed to do something drastic and change the narrative. So we had a group of young, vibrant practitioners that have put their all into the development of facility management, and we came to a conclusion that the only way we can change this narrative is to have a homegrown association. Yeah, we are excited, we are privileged to be part of the BIFM, we are excited to be part of IFMA, we are excited to be part of any other international organization. We've learned so much from them. We are happy to be associated with them. But at this stage in our growth and development, we needed a homegrown solution, a body that can speak on our, or to give us a voice with the government of Nigeria. And we needed to have a voice of our own. We needed to have a body we can do business with without looking behind our shoulder to see if somebody was getting angry because of the move we had made. Okay, so we also discovered that there were so many opportunities that we as a nation should have been part of that we are not part of. For instance, the Global FM. Why is Nigeria not having their flag in the Global FM? Because we don't have a national association. Okay, even before we became members of the ISO Technical Committee 267, we needed to talk to our government to be able to register and get us in as a group in the ISO standards. So these are the reasons why we decided to have a national association and to have a profession that is recognized by our government. Because as long as we are at this stage of being members of the international organization, they are not going to recognize us as a profession. And the way it goes in Nigeria, for a profession to be recognized, it has to be passed or backed by law, by an act of parliament. And at this stage, we created what we call the Nigerian FM initiative. This comprises of young, dynamic, forward-thinking, active Nigerians that have been part of the growth and development of facility management over the years. And we decided to set up the Nigerian FM initiative. And the initiative began to meet and get young people to come into our fold, and we created an opportunity for everyone, every stakeholder in the facility management profession, whether you are from the BIFM, whether you're from the IFMA, wherever you are coming from, as long as you are interested in facility management, we want you to come to the same room with us. Let us discuss and take our destiny in our hands. So we decided to have two separate meetings, one in Lagos and one in Abuja. Those are the two major cities in the country. And we had very beautiful engagements, and we came up with some resolution. One was to sponsor a bill in the National Assembly to have facility management passed into law as a profession. And secondly, we wanted to see how we can have a professional association. And right now, I'm happy to announce to us that we are in the process very soon to have a bill passed, recognizing facility management as a profession in Nigeria. And this is very exciting to us. And I believe that once that is done, it's going to set the tone for other great things to follow. Because when people recognize facility management as a profession, there's going to attract young talent, and people will begin to come in and become part of what we do. And we also are also signatory to the ISO standards that has come. And what great time to be in the facility management profession in Nigeria. Two great events happening around the same time. We're about to get a bill passed for facility management to become recognized as a profession, and we have the ISO having published standards for facility management. So right now we are looking at seeing facility management explode in astronomical proportions in Nigeria. And for the first time in the history of the growth and development of facility management in Nigeria, an event organized by the Nigeria FM initiative during celebration of the World FM Day in a couple of weeks back. We had a representative of the Vice President of Nigeria and the Minister of Works, Power, and Housing attend our conference. That, for me, was the height. To have the vice president of your country talking about facility management. It means that we are making progress. And I believe that it started when we decided to take our destiny in our hands and begin to interact very closely with government. And once the government, who are the major owners of infrastructure in the country, buys into this ideology or this profession, definitely the sky is no longer our limit, but just a starting point. And my call this morning is to invite us, the global FM community, to come join us to harness the huge potentials that is inherent in the continent of Africa. We have so much going for us. It is a place of untapped resources. We are already crowded in Europe and America. Let's expand. Let's share this knowledge. Let's come and let's develop the developing worlds. We need you, the FM community. We need you. We are only asking for partners. Partners to join hands with us to grow the profession. Now the government is about to start looking towards what can you do to change the landscape? What can you do to change the narratives? And if we don't have the solution, it means that we'll be failing in our promises. But the beauty of it all right now is you all have gone through the process. Some 38 years, some 25 years, some 30 years, developing processes. And we do not have to start from where you started from. We have the unique opportunity to copy what you are doing right now and take it back with us and implement. Thank you very much for the time. God bless you. Okay.
Thank you very much. Dear presenters, now we have several questions from the audience. Please, welcome to the stage. Occasionally, Yen left us for urgent TC. Sorry for that. Anyhow, you can find him in the hall later. So at the moment, we have several questions.
Like, where did you get your shoes from? That's the most important question. What an incredible pair of shoes.
Okay, Collins. That's why we'll start. Let's start with you.
Okay.
How can we replicate your approach in other countries? Well, is it possible, or is it only local experience?
Yeah. Over the years, with my interaction with people from all over the world in the field of facility management, I discovered that, yes, we have a lot of situations that is inherent in different countries. We have, when you say things about facility management and you try to explain the current state of things in your country, the response you will usually get, oh, it's the same thing we suffer in our country. However, I believe that there are some unique challenges peculiar to every country or every part of the world. There is a unique challenge. And first of all, you will need to study and understand how you can get government to participate actively within your operations or your activities. In our own case, we noticed that for any profession to be recognized, you have to go through Parliament to get a bill to establish that profession. And that was why we had to go through the process. And luckily for us, we had a member of our association vie for position, and he also became a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that worked it out for us. So my advice is get involved with government, get involved with politics if you have to, and get into leadership. And most importantly is to be an advocate. We must get our message to the right people. And we must understand how to present our message in the language they will understand. because if we speak the language we know in the field of facility management to these people, they may not be able to appreciate what we are saying to them. But we needed to understand the language that those in government understand, and we're able to communicate in their language. And today we are moving very fast, making very good progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Collins. Felicia, question to you. You made very nice research, but we need one more conclusion. Please give just one example how to applicate your research to practice.
How to apply to practice?
Just one.
One sentence?
Or one example.
I think how to apply to practice is what I believe we should do is anticipate on what is happening. Either it is in a company, either it is in a national environment, but do it based on whatever the whole world has known. So learn from other people and make sure that it fits whatever is needed within your environment, either your company or your country.
Okay, thank you. Chris, one question. It is not exactly the question. We have a suggestion from the audience. Our audience suggested us to go further, for further rebranding, and to move from the workplace to quality of life.
Was that sponsored by Sodexo? Does that person work for Sodexo? that's their marketing strapline, right? No, but you're right. It's the same thing, right?
It is more human.
It is.
That's why this question appeared.
And I think that's really important. You know, you go to a lot of conferences, FM conferences, and we keep saying it's a people business, and then you talk about the building for a long time. I think we could keep changing it, and it could keep expanding. But for me, workplace is a perfect bridge between the two. Okay, and it's this kind of intersection where people and space kind of overlap. It's interesting. Someone else said to us, now I promised, where's Olga? I promised I wouldn't say this last night, but I've decided I'm here now, I may as well. For me, that language bit, that connection bit's really important, and it's about bridges. So love it. I mean, that, by the way, what a presentation that was around like inspiring a nation. I mean, I'm just trying to get members to vote the right way, but you're getting a whole country to change their mind. But we talked about the language and how important that is, and building bridges to other communities of people. And someone said to me, well, it should be, why don't you just call yourself the Built Environment Institute? Now, I think part of our problem around collaboration is that we do collaboration with other organisations. So I know RICS are here, Paul's there. So we're doing some work with RICS on the response to the Grenfell Tower disaster in the UK, right? So important work. So we've got our experts in on that. So we do collaborate with the built environment. But I wonder, and this is the controversial bit, I wonder whether the problem is that we keep talking about the built environment as the thing that we need to be more of. Because actually, since we've started changing the name, started changing the narrative, I've had better conversations with the HR community. I've had better conversations with the IT community. I've had better conversations with the marketing community, who all of them almost go, that makes sense. It's almost like, so for me, about the human bit, it's about, I see the workplace word. I mean, if we went too human, I think they'd probably not really understand what we're about at all, but almost too big. But that bridge connects us to a whole different community. For me, that's quite exciting. It's the thing that we've been trying to do for ages, right?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you to our presenters. Thank you for the audience. Now we are closing this block, and now let's continue networking and
drink coffee.
Maybe coffee.
I think a few people need it.
I'm very loud, so with the speaker it's even worse. Okay, so good morning. I thank you all for being here. I also thank the organization because this is the best panel. This is the best timing for a second day because we are right after the coffee. So for the people that went late yesterday, so they came for the coffee, and we are before lunchtime. So this is a perfect slot. So nice to see you here. My name is Miguel Agostinho. I'm from the Portuguese FM body, and since we'll be talking here about IT and FM. And since I'm Portuguese, I live under that curse that when I say I'm from Portugal, everybody says, wow, Cristiano Ronaldo, wow. Okay. And when I go someplace to talk about IT and facilities management, people say, wow, sensors and beacons. And don't get me wrong, I like Cristiano, I like sensors and beacons, but I think that Portugal and IT in FM have more things to offer. And sometimes we mix up, and that's very easy to do with technology, because we gaze at that new technology, and sometimes we forget that technology is not an end by itself, it's a means, it's a tool. It's like for FM, IT is a way to help us be better at improving the quality of life and being better in giving a better productivity to the organization that we support. And also for Cristiano, his use is to win us the World Cup. So tool and the end. So we need to mature. So this discussion here is to mature our thought about technology, because we're not discussing if technology is important or not. Of course it is, but how are we maturing in our organizations that use, and that will help us lead from this this way of we like technology to what are we doing with technology and exchanging the different experiences. In this panel, and if you go using your app, which I advise you to do, and you go through the bios of the speakers, you'll see that they come from the academy, or they come from an FM body, or they're a practitioner. So it's a very broad. Set of experiences that we have here with these three colleagues. So I think they'll be giving very good perspectives. So I hope that we will have a good Q&A afterwards. So please also use the app. Lunchtime will not start before 1:30. So with that in mind, so please try to do questions so that we'll use this length of the panel. It will be good, and so I'll be asking Lars. So Lars here, as the practitioner, is from Zurich Insurance. You have your 20 minutes, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Lars, welcome to my session, and thanks Miguel for a perfect entry, and I add directly a short story and experience from last year. Manhattan, nice bar, nice people, and the question to me after 20 seconds, what's your job? Maybe a typical question after 20 seconds in Manhattan, but what's your job? And my answer was corporate real estate facility management, and it was end of story and end of this discussion and conversation. So maybe it sounds too boring, but I don't think so. And so let's have a view where we are in Zurich Insurance in my region currently. It's EMEA region, We are talking about 450 locations. Believe me, in my region, nothing is similar. All of these buildings are totally different. We are talking about a budget about 320 million US dollars. And to manage this region in a good way means to understand in which the region works. And this means different languages, different history. So it's significant important to have the right empathy, to have the right interest for these things. And believe me, it's not only between the countries, it's also in the country, the differences. You can, if you are searching for furniture in Spain, you can do things in Madrid not in the same way like in Barcelona. Madrid is really conservative, loves dark wood. Barcelona, hip, a little bit arty-farty, but you can't do never the same things. Italy, if you have an FM supplier in Naples, you have no chance to use it for Milan because it's different. And also a nice point is a German speaker goes to Vienna in Austria, and believe me, if this man has not the right empathy for Vienna, he will fail in 2 seconds. So it's really important to understand these points to be successful. What is our model to make it and to build it up? Customer-centric sounds so easy, and it's so complicated. I'm a German, and in front of the World Championship, we have not one team coach. In my country, we have 80 million team coaches because everyone has something to do with football, and so it's really difficult for Jogi Löw currently. If you make a decision, it's ridiculous. It's the same in FM industry. If a client or a customer loves to go in a restaurant, he thinks he's a catering expert. If a client or a customer moves twice in his life, he thinks he is an expert in logistics. So for us, it's really complicated with these people. But nevertheless, we need the right patience, the right interest to manage this in the best way. Of course, for us, it's really important. A lot of people wants to make the best, but it produces overlaps. Overlaps are a typical enemy of my business. And so it's really important to minimize and ignore and find a way without. Improve services on productivity, of course, but this improvements, especially with innovation. Innovation is also a high-level word. What is innovation? So if I speak with suppliers that, oh, Lars, we can sell you innovation concepts and so on. But innovation, this means for me a new idea without a bridge to transport this new idea in our world of practice is useless. And I'm not interested in these academic things. So we need to have a look to these points to use this power. And of course, we need to be flexible. In our company, every 6 months we have a new structure. So our team needs to be really flexible to do the right things at the right time. What is our key of success to be more effective, more efficient? Of course, knowledge transfer, best practice. This is a really important point. If a CEO comes to me and asks me, Lars, what is good in your job? I share best practice, good experience in one country. We can transform this in other countries. Contract ownership means, of course, we bundle contracts where we're in the position to do it in the right way. But the right message of this slide is we renegotiate all our contracts, we create and bundle things, we create new office spaces, we reduce space, and after 10 years, and I think this is the same experience in all of your regions, this lemon is empty. You can reduce cleaning more and more, but then our customer can clean by themselves. So it's really, really difficult at this moment, and I know it's the same in all other companies. if it's the same, we must look ourselves, what can we do to find answers? And one important point is, and this was a little bit also in our own marketing, the question for us is we are not in love with carpets and not in love with food. Look at me, maybe the answer is different. Okay. The main question is we are here to support our customer in the best way that his business is more productive. This must be our main message. This has really something to do with self-marketing. It's really important and powerful. Shared goals, objectives, of course, integrated part of a global strategy. Believe me, in Europe, this is a challenge. We have really independent units, so this is a big challenge, but nevertheless, the right way to do it. To understand business needs is the most important point. It's really important to be open, also to read between the lines. This is really important. If not, we do the wrong things at the wrong time with more cost than he expected. So, and of course, our strengths are really powerful. And FM is not boring. Why? Because we are the creative people. Don't forget this. It's not marketing or communication or so. We must find day by day, and this makes our job so interesting. We must find day by day new solutions, new answers. No day is the same, and this is perfect. Teamwork. Nobody in my company has so motivated people like in my FM world. The people are really friendly, enthusiastic about what they are doing because they know they do the right thing. And of course, our network. We know a lot of people. And everyone with his iPhone think, oh, he's good connected. No, he isn't. If you're not in the position to meet people for a cup of coffee and take the time, you will lost. You will be successful if you invest time in people and time in network. In the end, we need to find in everything what we do the right balance. There is no black, there is no white. You need to find the right balance between global interests and local needs. Believe me, I had a really painful 5 years behind me to find this balance again and again, so I know what I'm talking about. Now there is a now there is a moment, everything is fine in my world, and the lemon is empty, as I described. But we are not a lonely island. In front of us, so many things changed. And the elementary question for us as FM managers is, what happens there? And what can we do for people and the company? From my point of view, currently we are building a big building in Cologne for 3,600 people, and these 3,600 people will have a beautiful area, a beautiful office space, everything is open, and we create a solution, 80% desks, 20% collaboration zones, meeting zones, etc. We want to bring this in the next years in a completely total different switch. In 4 or 5 years, I want to see there 80% collaboration zones, 20% desks. Why? Because the expectation of our employees changed dramatically. 20 years ago, high talent, if you offered this high talent a single room, a big Mercedes or BMW, and the right parking place, believe me, this talent says, Lars, I love you, I want to work with you. If I come now to a high talent and do the same, he will laugh. He say, no, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in cars. I'm not interested in rooms. I'm not interested. We need to find a completely new way to hire the talents we need. And it was a great pleasure to hear the things from the students. So this was really interesting for me. But it's not enough. We need to invest more, and the company changed, and the company must change to fill the expectations from these high talents. Next point is technology. 1 iPhone, 2 iPhones, 3 iPhones, and so on. In my world, in my company, we are in the position to work with the technology we have from everywhere in the world. iPhone, iPad, that it is. You can do everything. So our standard of digitalization, and believe me, this word is for John Tang difficult, digitalization, is so significant. It's such a revolution, and I want to be part of this revolution. But not as a part, I want to be at the top of this revolution. And this means we need the right answers, and the right answers is to offer the right location. To offer our high potentials, it's not more needed to work 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours at one desk in one building. It needs a new answer, and this new answer is to be maximum flexible. If you come back to the building, you meet people in projects, from meetings, to have this team spirit, but it's really important that we go this way. What is the outcome? And now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment I feel really sexy and not boring. The outcome of this transformation process to come from this old thing, and please forget desk sharing or ratios. This is the past. It's funny to hear this. It's totally the past. Look to the future. And the future is, if we come to this campus solution, the answer to this is, in 5 years, our expectation minus 20 to 25%. If you look back to my presentation on page number 2, my portfolio volume is 320 million US dollars. I'm talking about 80 million US dollars potential savings if we do the right things. And believe me, this, from my position, really, really, really good. And we need to go to this point, because if not, you will fail. Every company who ignore this situation will fail. And then we have the same situations with Nokia in Finland, with other companies who ignore development and these things. In the end, there are a lot of things I'm really proud to be part of this transformation process. And I'm a big fan of Stephen Hawking. It's a shame that he left this world, but nevertheless, in any case in the future, be proud, be interested, and look at the stars and not at your feet. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, so Lars gave the tip because he talked about Nokia, and now we have the colleague from Finland, Tuli, right? So Tuli will talk to us about IT for the sake of the people and not for the sake of the buildings. Thank you, Tuli.
Thank you. Internet of Things. What does it mean for FM? As a customer value researcher, I claim that in the era of IoT, FM is not about services. Not about services. It's all about user experience. How to create a pleasant way to use premises, facilities, workplace, and so on. So it's all about user experience. We often tend to think that in the field of FM, that we can use IoT to enhance the performance of the buildings. And that is true. But we can also use it to enhance the performance of the workers, to have workers that work smarter. And that was the reason why we decided with Granlund Consulting and with Aalto University, both from Finland, and then with Delft University of Technology to do research in this topic, how IoT supports the users. And just to bring us all to the same page, I want to briefly introduce you the definition that we followed, what is IoT. So we followed Whitmore, and Whitmore's and the others define that the idea in IoT is that everyday objects like lights or doors or you name it, they are equipped with sensors. And these sensors can identify, sense, network, and process data. And of course, they can also communicate with each other over the Internet of Things. But none of this is really relevant unless there is a useful objective why to do it. So there's no point to just collect data. There needs to be a reason why we are collecting that data. So it might be that we want to enhance the building performance, we want to have a better indoor climate, or that we want to enhance the performance of the employees, the users of the building. So in this research, we focused on the user. We did 2 studies. First, in the supply side, so we studied what type of services there are and what kind of value they deliver for the user. And then with the users, we discussed how they perceive the value of the IoT-related solutions and services. And I have today 3 conclusions that I would like to share with you. To start with the first one, I would first like to introduce you this model. It's presented by World Economic Forum, and it basically illustrates 2 things: how IoT is adapted, and then how it impacts on economies. So the first stage that's very simple. The focus is on operational efficiency, how to use the current resources and assets in an efficient way. In the second stage, we develop and launch new IoT-related products and services, and we pay per the use. So we don't have to own the device, but we only pay when we use it. Then the 2 other stages, outcome economy and pull economy. In outcome economy, you don't actually buy anymore the service or the product. You buy the outcome. Sounds simple. Then the pull economy. I like to explain pull economy that it's about the customer or the user who decides what they want, when they want it, and at the month they want it. So they are pulling. So if we compare to the push economy, where somebody on behalf of the user kind of decide what they need, then it's pushed to the market, and then the user needs to be convinced that this is the thing that you need. So, and I think that in a pull economy, the really great thing from sustainability perspective is that we consume less. We consume less energy, less other resources like materials, water, human resources, because we only use what is needed, what we need. So, we studied 29 IoT-related services or products in the Finnish real estate market. And after the analysis, we did a bit of simplified version out of the model that I just presented you. So in the optimization, the focus is on the current practices and processes, how to make that more efficient. So basically it's about saving money, cost savings. On the next stage is about that we actually develop the processes and the practices, for example, through re-engineering. And then the last phase is the disruption of the market. And here are the results. 90% of the services that we studied aimed for optimization. So about cost savings. None of the services were disrupting the market. None of the services. So the first conclusion, it really seems that in the field of FM, we really haven't yet get the full potential of IoT and what it could bring to us and our users. To continue to the next phase, the study that we did with the users. So we find out that there are basically 3 reasons why sometimes users are discouraged to use IoT. And those are privacy, usability, and attitude. So privacy. When we use IoT-related solutions and services, we give a lot of personal information about who we are, how we behave, where we are, and so on. If we don't know how that information is used, we don't trust how it's used, we just don't use the service. It's simple. The usability. Sometimes the applications, the interfaces are not just very nice to use, so then we search for other alternatives, how to solve the thing that we are trying to do. So we just don't use it then. And the last one, attitude. Well, if people think that if I have problems even in a meeting room to connect my laptop to an external screen, how on earth IoT can help my daily life? Well, it won't then, if the attitude is about that. We also find 3 things that encourage to use IoT. And those were customization, personalization, and control. So let's take an example. Imagine that you arrive to your office by car. You have given a permission to the system, so you have control over the system, that the system can identify your car, for example, through the license plate, and it opens the door for you. Then you drive in smoothly, and then you have even given permission for the system to do a decision on behalf of you to pick a parking slot for you. So it might be the nearest one for the exit where you need to go. And then you might personalize it a bit further, and you decide then based on how much you need to carry things, do you want to take the lift or the stairs? And then the system pre-order the lift for you if you want to take the lift, and then you just walk in. Nice and smooth. And the smoothness was the thing that the users really appreciated. They kind of consider that the smoothness is about the smart workday. But we have to keep in mind that for the users, for the employees, it's not just the time that is spent at the office, it's the entire day. So it also includes the time that you go and pick up your children from the school, or do your groceries, or do your car maintenance. It's the entire day. And this leads to the importance of ecosystems. So without proper ecosystems, the users end up in a situation where they have a bunch of different apps in their smartphones. One for lights, one for car, one for the doors, one for the temperature, one for the sauna, you name it. And that's not attractive, that's not a nice experience to use, so people don't use it then. So, the second conclusion that I want to share with you is that in order to really lift the value delivery in FM context to the next level, we need to start thinking the ecosystems. We need to start thinking the entire systems, not just the small applications for different tasks. Then, the last conclusion that I would like to share with you, and for me this was actually quite shocking to notice. We noticed that the user is not part of the service network. So basically, engineers sell sensors to other engineers. This is a great example also of a push economy. Somebody else on behalf of the user decides what they need, and then we are trying to convince the user that this is the thing what you need to make your day better. Well, it doesn't work like that. To summarize, I would like to borrow the word of Erik Uppels, who is CTO of OVG Real Estate. He was one of those who we interviewed to this research. He stated, it has nothing to do with technology. Nothing. It's all about customer experience. And we as facility management professionals need to make sure that that value is delivered for the customer, because we represent the user. So we actually might have a position in the market to represent the user and start delivering this value for the users. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Tuli. Now we'll have Simon. He's going to talk about one thing that is always, for the last 2 or 3 years, been a constant concern of us, is that the use of BIM and BIM FM. And so you guys did a survey on the awareness of BIM, so I think it's going to be very interesting. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here in this beautiful city, and I'm going to present a presentation which should have been given with a colleague of mine, Peter Brogan, from the BIFM, but unfortunately he's been poorly, so I will do it on myself. But the presentation is also done with Dr. Matthew Tucker, who a lot of you know here, who is my PhD supervisor. And today I'm going to try and talk about building information modeling. Some of you may be very aware of it, some of you may not be so aware of it, but we've tried to benchmark and do some research to find out a little bit more about that. So this is what I'm going to go over to today. I'm going to talk about why our research is important. We've heard a lot today about buildings, we've heard a lot about people, about workplace, and in my view, I think all of this stuff needs to be linked. It's all equally important in a way. And I'm going to talk about the role of FM in a BIM project. What do I actually see as a practitioner? I had 20 years of experience as a facility manager working for Serco, one of the big companies in England. And I'm now an academic at Zurich University of Applied Sciences. But actually, for me, I'm interested in academics working together with practitioners. I'll talk about our partnership in terms of the research, discuss the findings briefly. I won't bore you too much with the statistics. But then I'll talk about the next journeys that I think FMs need to take in terms of moving forward. So just to give you an idea, this is actually a BIM model that's been created of our university in Zurich. It's the Institute of Facility Management in Zurich. Now, it's actually been created by Michele Meslek, who's one of the presenters who was here yesterday doing a poster presentation of one of our talks. And it's a retrospective BIM model, so it's been built after the building's been created. So for me, building information modeling is a radical thing that's hitting our industry. When I told my director 2 or 3 years ago that I was going to take a PhD and I was going to focus on BIM and FM, he told me BIM is not even a topic that should be of interest to FMs. Now it's almost like a landslide technology that's taking over in terms of if you go and you put BIM on the line, you see it happening everywhere. But the crucial thing from my perspective is what is the role of the facility manager in the BIM process? What do we actually do in projects? I used to manage very large construction projects, and I know, absolutely know, if I had had BIM as a process and a technology and a tool, it would have made my life infinitely easier in the future. So in the UK, we've had a drive to change. The government has made a mandate saying, if you don't do BIM by 2016, you don't even get onto the contractor list in terms of projects. And so it's been driven radically by the government in the UK. And they have a Construction 2025 construction strategy where they had some very, very strong targets. They're looking at a 33% cost saving across the industry in construction. So it was interesting to me, if you look at the value of the construction market in the UK, we're talking about 107 billion when this report was done. But the UK FM market is estimated to be 155 billion. That's more than the construction market. If you take those two together, there's a potential for an absolutely massive saving. But I'm a bit of a realist. I think we're probably not going to get 33%, but even if we make a tiny fraction, 1 to 5%, we're talking about an economy difference of about 2.6 to 13 billion pounds. So in the UK, we have something called Digital Built Britain. Excuse me, I have a very dry throat, so I'm just going to take a drink. And Digital Built Britain is an organisation that's been set up to look at how we're going to drive change in digitisation in the UK. So BIM is part of that. And for me, what's interesting is that all the construction people are getting loads and loads of experience in BIM. They're using it every day, they're using it in their projects. FMs and clients have sort of been sitting a bit on the sideline and saying, okay, well, how's that going to impact on me and how am I going to manage it? And what's really important for me is to find out how FMs and clients can actually get the information that they need at the end of a building project to actually manage their buildings, because after all, that's the important thing. When you look at research, we're seeing that actually BIM is not being used very much in the operational phase at the moment, about 10% according to some research. But to me, it took a while to get this, that BIM is about information. It's not about the models, it's not about the technology, it's about the information that's embedded within that. But it doesn't matter whether you're talking Digital Built Britain, it's going to be Digital Built Europe. And I would predict in the next 10 to 20 years, virtually all of the industries across the construction industries will be using this technology across Europe. So what's the role of FM in this? When I look online, I see lots of sort of like bits about cost managers or architects or something, but what does BIM actually mean to me as a facility manager, and how is it actually going to help me? So I go back to, I used to do a lot of these projects, and there was this magical world where you built a building, and then you got to a point in time, and you get the keys for the building, and they'd say, there you go, it's yours to use now. But the problem is, if you look on the left-hand side here, we actually have, in the BIM world, you're going to get 3D graphical models, you're going to get lots of information, you're going to get lots of documents, and somehow as facility managers we need to turn that into processes, services, how we manage cost, how we manage products, and it's not realistic, because what happens is all the people who have the information, when they're building the building, they disappear. And if you're really unlucky as a facility manager, you arrive at that dot where everybody's disappeared, and somehow you magically need to pick up the baton and try and turn all of this stuff into helpful information. And that gives us a great opportunity for what we call the death valley of know-how. The amount of time I used to spend with my staff looking for information was absolutely unbelievable. We would waste so much time because stuff wasn't handed across well. So what we actually need to do is to think about what information we actually need and to get FMs involved at the beginning of the construction process so they can make this link across and we actually end up with a professional handover. I won't bore you with all of these terms, but one thing that's very interesting to me is asset management strategies. There's a lot of research that's been done that's saying companies, less than 50% have a written down policy to say how they're going to manage their assets, and yet after people it's the second biggest cost that an organisation will actually meet. So, any one of these people, architects, planners, these types of people, they can easily manage BIM projects, but the facility manager is the only person in the middle who actually has a very detailed understanding of a client's requirements and as some of our other sort of presenters have said, of what the client actually wants from a building to make it actually useful, like Chris said, in terms of buildings. So here are some funny examples, but you know, I've seen this type of crazy thing in my life where you've been to a project and they put the toilet there and then the, you know, why did they do that? Here are a couple of other examples. So, you know, we've got a step where somebody can't quite be bothered to finish the last 3 steps for the sort of wheelchair. But the one on the left-hand side is my favorite. That's a bubble diagram where somebody said, look here, and the guy on site thought it meant chop a hole in the floor, yeah? So how much money is that going to cost? And I definitely wouldn't want my kids to play on that roundabout. Yeah? So, but you know, the guy who's installed the security camera, he's going, great, because somebody's going to give me some more money. I'm going to get paid to move it again. So why should I think and be proactive about it? So BIM to me is quite simply, I call it the garbage in equals garbage out solution, where you put more time up front to actually work out how your building is going to be developed. And the latest in word at the moment is digital twin. It should be a digital twin of what we're going to have in real life. But why it's going to be easy, helpful rather, is because if FMs are involved early in the process, we'll be able to work with the design teams and actually go inside buildings with 3D glasses and actually say, don't put that over there because it'll cost me a load of money because I'm going to need a bit of equipment to come in and maintain it. So it would be very useful. So what I want to do is to move away from, in the past, I had files and files and files go past me when buildings were finished, when they'd be handed over. And we want to move to this, a digitized way of actually doing business in the modern world. When you build a building, you end up with loads and loads of information. Yeah? But as an FM, I don't need all that information. I need specific information that's going to allow me to help it. The other realistic thing is I use a CAFM tool to manage my business or manage my assets, not a BIM model. What we need to do is to find a way to join those two things together so that we actually end up with the right information in our tools at the end. I use this model from one of the PAS standards in the UK to talk about it because I think that if you're going to do BIM, what you need to do is to ask up front the customer, what do you actually want from your buildings? What information do you need? How are you going to manage it? And if you don't do that, it's going to be the garbage in equals garbage out. You're going to be going into a garage, asking for a car, and being disappointed that you don't get the Ferrari with all the nice red bits at the end because you didn't ask for the right car. So, if we have something like an asset management strategy, we should start asking ourselves, how am I actually going to use that? And how am I going to get all this information at the end when it gets handed across? How am I going to use it with my FM organizations? So, for me, it's about making sure we can optimize our assets to make our workplaces better and make the life of our employees and our staff better. So, if you're an FM, where do you start? There are lots and lots of guidance documents around, and if you go online and you type in BIM, you can almost be sort of like crushed by the amount of information. But BIFM have produced something called an Operational Readiness Guide. We have a standard in the UK, 8356, which tells you if you're going to start a project, this is what you should do. But in summary, the way I like to think about it is you should try and have an asset management strategy at the beginning, and you ask your client what they actually need in terms of information. In lingo terms, it's called an OIR and an AIR, which is what information do you need to operate your assets and what information do I need about my assets. But if I use this garbage in equals garbage out, what I'm trying to do is to produce at the beginning a document in the BIM term that we call an EIR that tells the construction team, this is what I want you to do, and this is the information I want at the end of the process. So if I do all of that, then I might just get the right information that I need for my model. So BIFM and Zurich University of Applied Sciences have been working very strongly together, and myself and Dr. Matthew Tucker, who's my supervisor, we've carried out some research in this area. It's been very strongly supported by Mark Bew, who's the head of the Digital Britain package. And what's very interesting to me is he's trying to get everybody on this journey of getting into BIM and understanding what it's about. If anybody is interested in the research, please contact me, or you can go online. All of my research is completely free. And the idea is I was doing it as part of my PhD, was trying to benchmark the industry and find out what's going on. So I will go through the survey findings, and give you an idea. But just to give the context, it wasn't just in the UK. We had a lot of findings, 254 responses from 28 different countries, with a range of stakeholders, including facility management contractors, but also other people involved in the whole life cycle of actually delivering a building. So we asked some essential questions at the beginning. Had you heard about BIM at the beginning of the survey? Do you actually believe that BIM will have a significant impact on the industry? When we answered these questions, do you believe that it will help support the industry, and what timescale do you think it will kick into? What we basically came back with is that there's a great belief out there that BIM will actually help at the moment, and people have the perception that it will, but they're not so sure about what the timescales might be. We then asked people, did they actually have any experience of using any of the BIM documents, and generally speaking, we found that the experience was low. But to me, that's not surprising, because I don't think there are yet enough people in the FM industry who are really involved in BIM projects to actually understand how to actually use them. But the positive news is, we asked people, so would you be happy to have a go in a BIM project? Would you be confident about developing some of these documents? And the confidence rates are generally very high among the people. When we actually asked people about general perception and awareness, some interesting points came out. BIM is about a collaborative process, not the technology. So it's about getting a result from a process. It has the value to deliver significant impact to FM, but FMs need to be more familiar with it. We need to help them on that journey. We looked at advantages, and the interesting thing for me is when I did a similar survey 3 years ago, cost was what was talked about. The number one ranked advantage of BIM is perceived now to be strategic decision making about how you're going to manage your assets and use them. And for me, that is a very interesting change. When we looked at the challenges, we found that the co-linkage between how you move data from a BIM system into a CAFM system and then vice versa was very strong, but also there was a very strong undercurrent saying we need more training and more help. We talked about, or looked at the BIM strategy of the UK. So for example, in the UK, we're already developing level 3 BIM and how we're actually going to do that. And when we actually looked at the results of what people had actually found, a lot of the people were aware of the levels of BIM, but not many people had heard about the strategy of level 3. Again, I don't think that's too surprising because of the international context of the research. We asked people about, do any of their organizations actually have any of these things in place? And again, you can see asset management strategies. A lot of the companies don't have any strategy for managing their assets. Generally speaking, the levels are quite low, and then when we looked at BIM training in organizations, again, our employees would benefit from BIM certification or some form of training. So if you look at guidance documents used by FMs around the world with BIM, there are lots and lots and lots of them. These are some of the ones that got mentioned. But to summarize the findings of the report, and again, this is a very detailed report which is available online from BIFM, so please go and have a look at it. I won't go through all of these, but for example, one of the ones there, 81.1% of people agree that companies that introduce BIM will have an advantage over those who don't. The people who are staying behind, waiting to see if BIM will happen, will be the ones that will lose out, because it will very, very definitely come in the next few years. It's interesting to see that also a lot of people felt that BIM is not just for new builds. But the conclusion of all of this is we need to do more to help our industry. We need to actually try and help the FMs. So what's been happening in the background, the BIFM have been partnering with us, and we've, together with other people, we've produced a range of documents. Again, these documents are available from BIFM if you want. From my point of view as an academic, I don't want to produce something that just goes in a scientific paper that nobody's ever going to read. I want it to be available for practitioners, and these are available online if you want to go and have a look at them. They're quite detailed, and I don't have time in the presentation to talk about them in depth, but if anybody's interested, please come and see me. So the BIFM, and this is on behalf of Peter, they have already a plan. We have a think tank, a group of people who are looking at trying to produce further guidance documents on LCC and how BIM's going to work with CAFM. And they're actually starting to develop some specific training to actually meet people's needs. And it's very nice to know that they're very happy to continue the relationship between Liverpool and ourselves in Switzerland. So, again, I mentioned at the beginning, all of my research is free. It's all available through ResearchGate. And Magella Meslek, who was with me, with us yesterday, she and I have produced a paper for the conference, if anybody's interested in that again. So, just lastly, I want to just show you, this is the model that we've produced at ZHV. You can see on the left-hand side that the model is essentially a huge collection of objects. Yeah? Those objects, whether it's a table, a window, a door, doesn't matter, they are represented in terms of a digital twin. What you see on the right-hand side is an initial BIM viewing tool, because as an FM, I'm not going to go and learn Revit. I'm not going to go and learn the software to do BIM. What I need is a simple tool that allows me to do that. This is a viewing tool that allows me to, for example, click on this table or whatever, and actually get all the information about that asset actually in my hand if I'm using a portable device. So this type of technology is going to come on, I think, at a very, very fast rate, and as an FM industry, we should be ready for it. So that's my presentation. If any questions, I'll be very happy.
Okay, so thank you, Simon. Now we'll be here for the boxing round. So if each of you to a corner, only one person leaves. Those are the rules. So you have time to put some more questions. As I told you, lunch is only at 1:30. So I'm going for the first one. It's exactly the question I also had to ask, and it's to you, Lars. You talk about campus model, so forget desk sharing. Let's talk about campus model. Fantastic. You felt sexy when you talked about it. And then we saw, well, with that sexy solution, 20 to 25% savings. Fantastic. So can you talk a little bit more of what is the campus model so that we can also copy it to our companies?
Thanks for this. Yeah, campus model is a little bit more in which way our open space or space building is more orientated to people, and not that we bring people to an existing building. So this is campus. Campus means what can we do to support the people who are working for us with service points, with collaboration, so people come together in this area. This is for us this campus model. And again, I'm working for an insurance company. We have no chance to copy Google or Amazon or Microsoft. We need our own solution which works for our people. If you copy something else, you will fail. So we are really highly interested to find our own way on this. But campus model means what can do our area to support our people in the best way, and to bring them together for this team spirit we need.
And when you presented it to the shareholders, did you focus on the savings or the improvement of the quality of life and the improvement for the war of talent? What was the hook? Huh?
It's a good question. No, I did it in the same way, to tell the story and then in the end to say, okay, and here's the value. If you start with a saving potential, I think this is too less for this really great story. So tell the story and then the benefit.
Okay, good. So, Tuli. So, in your presentation, you talked about the pool economy. In the pool economy, which is the fourth stage, so that's the future for sure. So, in the pool economy, is there a place for the human sensors?
Yes, there is, of course.
And can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, I really like the presentation yesterday with the human sensor stuff, because I think we really need to find the balance about what is kind of automated and where is still the thing where we need the human touch, the human sensor. So of course we can I would propose that those things that we can automatize, that doesn't need the human touch, then yes, go for it. But nothing can really replace the face-to-face contact and the human touch, and that is still needed. And there is actually a difference between automation and autonomization. So automation is that the machine does everything for you, and autonomization is basically automation with human touch.
Okay.
So I prefer this autonomization instead of autonomization.
Okay, that's a new word for me to. Can you give also a take on this? So where do you think there is the tipping point? So you have the human sensors, you have just technology. So in your when you are proposing a building, what is your concern regarding that? Where do you go and get the information? What do you want?
I think the question comes also from Simon's presentation. The question is, what is really needed? And if I have too much information, nobody's interested in it, then it's useless. So I think it's really important, and so thanks for your presentation, to identify what is exactly needed and where is the value on information. And then you must make the decision which instrument or tool you use. But information could be a challenge. Too much is too much poison.
Yeah.
Simon?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very valid point. It was interesting for me in 2015 when I started my PhD. After the EFMC, we had a side project where I invited 20 or 25 academics and practitioners into a room and said to them, okay, at the end, what information do you really want to manage your building? And it was interesting to me that it was very difficult for people to be crystal clear and say, this is the information that I actually need. And the typical answer in industry is, we want everything. And when people, they just say, we want everything, what happens is it comes, but it comes as unstructured information that you can't easily manage. And there's a danger in the world of BIM that we actually end up with people thinking it's a failed solution. Because like, I get all this information, it's jumbled up, it's unstructured, I can't really use it, so actually, you know, I'm not getting a benefit from it. But it's crazy. If you didn't ask at the beginning, well, this is what I really want, you know, this is the Ferrari that I really want to get at the end, then don't be surprised with what you get at the other side. So, and to me, I think that doesn't matter if you're working with BIM or anything. That's just a human thing that you should be doing as a good project manager. So.
Good, thank you. So, Tuli, you in that survey you did, so you saw that all the IoT solutions were focused for optimization and
Yes,
not
so,
disruption.
yeah.
So what if, and I believe that one day it will go there, but what do you think will be the triggers? So what will have to happen so that people feel the need that it's not, no, optimization is already done, cannot optimize more, how can I go and take the risk to go towards disruption? What will be the triggers?
I think it's the general discussion in FM, because we often talk about cost minimization. Our target is to minimize cost, and of course then we need to create the other stuff. But that's always the starting point, so that is also easy in IoT, that we start with those that we have and try to make those more efficient. Perhaps not more effective, but at least more efficient. But I really think that we are in a human business in FM, so we need to start listening to the customer, the user. That's the way how we can actually, as you have also stated, to bring the change. Because they have the power to start using then those services and solutions, and then the kind of wheel starts going.
Okay. When do you have it in your roadmap to use IoT for disruption and not only for optimization?
Indeed. As I described, we are planning the construction for 3,600 employees in Cologne, and a lot of IS points are implemented in this roadmap, but it's not finished. If we are move in, I think it's a long way, but again, for us it's important not to create a data cemetery or something like that. We need something which helps really. Okay. And in the end, we need the right people with the right passion at the right place.
That sounds good. Good. Simon?
I think that for me what's very interesting is that when I talk to some people about my topic BIM, it's like, oh, it's about the building, it's about the real estate, you know. But actually for me, I'm completely on board with the fact that it's about people, and what we should actually be doing is at the beginning of the process is having a conversation with the clients to say, what can we actually do in order to make your buildings the buildings that you want to have at the end? We should be designing the buildings for their needs, and then we should be asking them, what do you need to report on? What type of information do you need in order to make the life better for your employees, but also to be able to make sure your buildings are safe, that they're statutory compliant, and lots of other things. And so for me, what's missing in the BIM world is this conversation at the beginning where you sit down and you really discuss with somebody what do you actually need, what do you want, and those things should then be turned into a solution together with architects, with planners, with all the other people to make sure that, for example, when Lars has finished his building, that the FM staff have all the information that they need in order to be able to operate the building, but also report on how efficiently it's been managed, how much money we've saved, how sustainable we are, and all of those things I think are very much interlinked. So from my side, it starts with the people, and then there's a process that needs to be followed. The important thing is, how do we give people the skill sets in order to be able to do that?
Okay. Can I just have a quick survey for Simon? Can all of you that already had heard about BIM raise your hand? Okay, that's nice. And who of you have already been involved in any way in a BIM project? Yeah. Thank you. So it's in the average, right?
Yes, I mean, I think it's fair to say that it's coming. And like I say, 10, 50, it's a bit like saying, you know, when we used to do hand paper drawings, which I used to do years and years ago, and if you said to somebody, will you move to CAD, they would have been like, well, not sure. Now there's no debate. And for me, the next move is from something like CAD into 3D BIM modeling in the future. And I think as facility managers, it will just become part of our business. The thing that's critical to me is in the past, when the client used to finish a building, or the construction company, they would give me a room full of documents and information. Now they're going to say, here is your digital 3D model, and here are all the digitized information. And if I don't know what to do with that, and I go, oh, I'll just put it in a cupboard because I'm a bit nervous about it.
I'm going to print all of it and put in
yeah,
folders.
and if a client then comes to you and says, by the way, all that money I paid for this thing, what are you doing with it? You're going to look really silly, you know. And I think one of our speakers before said that as the FM industry, we really need to get up to speed with technology in all of its shapes and forms, and BIM is just one small part of that discussion. So.
Okay. And you're saying that the UK government initiative for 2025 is to as more decrease in spending with the buildings, and it was 33%. And although you said, well, maybe it's not 33, maybe it's 1 to 5%, it's a big figure. What happens is that if there is that decrease, also the GDP of the country decreases a little bit. So and companies live year on year in having bigger budgets, having to sell more. So what do you think in terms of the industry, that and sometimes, well, innovation normally comes from the industry, maybe not so much from the government, and what you're seeing is that they are pushing an innovation, but how will the companies react if the potential to decrease costs is so immense?
Okay.
How is the industry that needs to implant and push it forward is looking at that? Is looking at BIM?
Okay, I'll give you two clear examples. I had a conversation with a couple of people in Switzerland when I first arrived there, where people were saying, why would I use BIM when actually what it means is I have to spend more money at the beginning of a project trying to define what I need. It's going to make the building more expensive. How do I sell that as an investor? How do I, why should I spend more money on that? And when I spoke to Skanska, their logic was it's a no-brainer, because by the time we have a digital twin, which you can go inside and look at, I can sell the building to a client before I've even put a spade in the ground. And a couple of weeks ago, I was at a company called Mention Machine in Switzerland, where you can actually sit with a BIM model and make changes, and a client with HoloLens or 3D lens on can see the changes in real time. And if I went back to my past, I would get a client in the room and say, here's your boardroom, let's change the color of the walls. Let's put a window over there. Because the problem is, most clients, they look at a 2D plan, and they cannot interpret that. And so what happens is, you then get to a point where they go on site and they go, well, that's not what I thought it would look like. Can you change this, 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 and this? And before you end it, you've spent a load of money on stuff that if you had the chance at the beginning, you wouldn't have had to do. And I think the second one is a company called BAM, who are very heavily involved in the construction industry in the UK, are doing construction using BIM modeling, but they also have an FM arm, and they are so confident that they are going to be able to deliver projects cheaper and so confident in information that they're saying to some of their clients, if you give us the FM contract after the construction project, we'll give you a 20% discount on the price. And for me, that's saying a lot, you know. So I think it's a little bit about managing the cost. It's about trying to make sure that we do things in a way that involves the human element as well.
But it will also impact in the contract. So you need to change the way the building contract and then the service contract will be made. So in order to take advantage of BIM, the contracts will also need to change.
You need to be involved at the beginning. And again, before the world of BIM came along, when I used to manage projects, what typically happens is this is the date for the project to be handed over. The construction project runs late, and the FM bit where I get the building gets compressed, sometimes to within 48 hours of you getting the building, yeah? And so before BIM, to me, that was nonsense. And so when I was writing contracts at the MOD in the UK, we actually changed the contracts saying a year before the building is handed over, you will sit down with us and start to plan how you're going to hand over the information. Now, in the world of BIM, that's literally what we're starting to do, but in an easier way where we have a tool to do it. And it's common sense that if you get rid of all these changes that are needed by not being able to visualize the building properly, and you get a building that's actually going to be what you need, and you plan to get the information, you're not going to have this panic at the beginning. And the worst thing you can do is have a building that's handed to you and you make a bad impression. And one of my colleagues in Switzerland told me a story about a very high-profile building they built. Open day, they have a fantastic event. Guys at the end and girls at the end of the evening from the director's suite go down to the car park and they try and get out of the car park. And when they put the switch, it doesn't work. Then they press the button, it doesn't work. Nobody bothers to check those things. And, you know, the end result is, every time he meets those people, they just say, you know that project you do? You remember the cock-up of the car park? And that's the only thing they remember about the whole project. All that good work went to waste, you know, so, in terms of reputation.
And Lars, are you ready for this? Are you ready for taking BIM under your wing and to manage the projects and have discussed when you're going to buy a new building to demand that it has BIM and then to operate? What do you think would be I see that there is a silver lining because it has all the advantages, but how do you think you will be able to manage that change within your organization?
I don't think that it's a significant change. I think it's a perfect tool to make things easier and more professional. And so, as you described, if you can implement it early enough and you can show different options, it's much more easier to make then adjustments as 2 days before you move in. Absolutely clear. I think there will be an investment, but there will be a lot of benefits, and you must show both. It's a really good tool, really good. Nevertheless, intelligent building is maybe a difficult word, but we can do much more than currently, definitely.
Okay. Well, since I don't have more, I only have one more question, so I'm going to use it, and it's kind of I think it's a nice provocation. It's why is being referred to BIM in exploitation as building information modeling and not building information management? Since we as facility managers, we do not model, but manage.
Yeah, okay. I have to be honest, for me, it's just a set of words, yeah. But if you talk to people in industry, in the construction world, they actually model the building at the beginning, yeah. The point I was trying to make in my presentation is, for me, it's about the management of the information, the little I that's in the middle, yeah. But at the beginning, you have to understand it's a process that gets modeled. And when we're in Switzerland, for example, nobody is telling the Swiss industry that you have to use BIM. What's actually happening is all the architectural practices and all the people who are doing it in construction are going, oh yeah, you know, this new technology is coming along, we need to use it. And so they're starting to do it. But you still get people who are turning up who are going, BIM is actually about the model. And it's not about the model, it's about the information that comes with it. But the realistic thing is they need that model in order to be able to build the building. So I'm just using building information modeling as a term, but if you like to talk about management, that's fine with me. But to me, it's about the information bit in the middle.
Okay. Thank you, Simon.
Okay.
Thank you all, and thank all of you also. So I think for me, I'm very happy with this panel, so I'll give it 2 thumbs up. And we're finished, so we can go all have lunch. I'll just ask you, because we have a very long time to have lunch, I think we'll have time to go to the collaborative wall and also to check and vote for the videos. So it will be wonderful if you took the lunch break to do that. So I think we can go lunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.